So I know I showed you how I had this set up before with this Intex style hose, which is I believe 40 millimeter, and this adapter, which is 1/2 inch SAE thread or pipe thread, something like that. 1.5 inch to this is the 40 millimeter, and I'm removing this so I can put a new style of filter on my pool, because I'm now going to a sand filter with a much higher volume pump. So this is the replacement piece. This is a Hayward piece. It just came with the pump I bought used from somebody. Part number is SP-1091-Z as in Zulu -4. And screws right in here. And then the Hayward style hoses have this type of connection that really it's a more or less a friction fit, and then put a band clamp on it. And if you're British, it's a Jubilee clamp. The rest of us, it's a hose clamp, because they were invented when the Queen was having her Jubilee year. So the guy invented was English or British or something, and he said called a Jubilee clamp. But that's how that goes together. And since this only has gravity on it, it doesn't have any pressure, this really would hold without any additional thing, because it is just a return. There's no pressure on this other than the weight of the water. And then I'll show you the rest of the setup on this new filter that I have. So when you're using these threaded fittings, you always want to put some Teflon tape on the threads, and you put it on in the same direction the threads go as if you were threading the Teflon tape into, you were threading the fitting into the Teflon tape like it was a female fitting. And then you want to put it tight, and you want to do, I don't know, 5. You know, this is a large one, so you got to go more. If they're small ones, you don't have to go as much. And pull that off. And then it's just a matter of threading it in, because this is not a pressure side, so it's not nearly as much of an issue. But I do want this to be watertight, because obviously having a leak with the pool would not be good for the long-term economics of the whole thing. And then take it down a little more. Obviously don't go till you're going to strip anything, but just make sure it's good and engaged like it is right there. And just, that's how you want to do all of your threaded fittings, just so you know that nothing's going to leak. This is the something better that I got. Somebody was moving, taking their old pool apart. Got this along with a bunch of other junk, pool related stuff and fittings and hoses and a whole pile of stuff for, I don't know, 60 bucks, which is an incredible deal, last year, and I just never got around to installing it. This is a standard Hayward, call it VeriFlow XL, and the only thing that is wrong with it is this little sight gauge for when you do the back flush or backflow, whatever you call it, where you flush out the bad stuff out of the sand filter, is exploded, and I've ordered a replacement, hoping it's the right one. It's got a leaf skimmer right here built into the inlet to the pump that unscrews, and there's a basket down inside of there. So now I'll have 2 skimmers. I may take the basket out of the other one, because I don't know if having 2 really makes sense. And then it's got this big, huge pump, which powerful matrix. You can see information on here, but I did test it. It works. And it's the Pro Series high rate sand filter. All the information there. I just gotta put it all back together because I had it apart for storage over the winter. But this right here, the discharge hose from the pump, once again needs more of those hose clamps, Jubilee clamps, whatever you want to call them. And I'm just gonna go ahead, and the thing with this is you set it where you want it and you don't touch it again, because got 100 pounds of sand there, right there to put in it, because that's what this thing holds. And once that's in there plus the water, it ain't moving. But the big thing I decided is, instead of using the Intex style hoses with these screw-on fittings and having to use an adapter, I would have had to buy 2 more adapters to go from the Hayward back to the Intex on the other side. I'm just going right with the Hayward style and the Hayward style hose, and I'm going to have another one of these barb tape fittings, and that's another Hayward one as well, and that is going to go right here on the inlet to the skimmer assembly on the pump. And then the only thing I will need my Hayward to Intex adapters for is right here, where it's going to come out and it's going to go to a saltwater chlorinator again. So I had the hose all hooked up and I was all ready to keep moving on with this. As you can see, that hose that's going around to the front of the pump inlet is the one that's coming out over here out of the skimmer, and it just runs around behind the filter and in there. But sticking out that far, I have children. I know somebody's going to bump that, knock it off, and we're going to lose a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 gallons of water. Dumb idea. So 90 degree 1.5 inch PVC pipe fitting will take care of that. Okay, time to fill the sand filter. First thing, of course, got to remove the clamp right here. So that's just simply removing a screw. There's one on the other side as well, and these 2 pieces of the clamp ring come apart. With your screws removed, take the 2 sections of the clamp ring. Make sure you save all of your screws and hardware and whatever, and put that to the side. I'm actually going to lift the filter body valve head off here, and see down inside, this is just a slip fit. This is the filtering tubes. And it comes apart just like that. Move that over here to the side. And then to put your sand in, you need something to keep sand from going inside of this tube, because that will mess things up. So I have, it's an old orange juice can, because I don't have the official thing, sets over it. Now when I pour my sand in, I won't have any problems. So pool filter sand is a special, there's a certain grade, not the stuff you just buy to put in like a sandbox or to make cement or something like that. There's a certain texture, grade, size to it. I know here on the outside it says that they have to fall between 0.016 to 0.021 of an inch for the size of the grains. So we're looking for a certain coarseness, and then it's just simply a matter of pouring it in here. Now on the outside of this filter housing it says 100 pounds. This is a 50-pound bag, so it's going to take 2, obviously. Wow, that looks kind of full, but we'll see if 100 really fits in here. Because I know I was reading instructions somewhere else and it said to only fill it halfway, and I would call 50 about halfway, but they know better than me since they designed it. So let me get my other bag too. So I got my second bag in there too. So obviously clean off anything here around the edge, because your O-ring has to seal right on here and your clamp has to seal around here. So make sure that that edge is nice and clean. Remove your little fill pipe cover. And make sure that that center pipe is engaged into the valve body. Everything's seated correctly. Then, of course, you got to reinstall your clamp. Make sure it's going to seat in there correctly to hold this assembly together. And put your hardware back together as well. It's always a good idea to have a place to store stuff, because in my case it's a bunch of little pieces like that. That you've got it arranged in a way that you have access. Of course, always make sure that everything is in the grooves the way it's supposed to be, so as you draw the clamp down tight, it actually is holding the head on, because if I understand correctly, this is going to have some pretty good pressure inside of it, and you want to make sure that it's not going to start spewing your pool water everywhere. Get your clamp down tight. Okay, so the instructions right over here on the side of, this is your filling instructions right there. You can see the media right above there. So filling instructions, now operating instructions. And it says to set everything up, fill it with sand, and then set the flow control valve to backwash. And we're going to backwash for 2 minutes. Now, to backwash, you have to connect onto the waste port over here. I'm missing the little sight glass. I have one on order, but it won't be here till tomorrow or the next day, because Amazon even takes 2 days. And I have a discharge hose, came with it, and I have a clamp to hold the hose on, and I'm just going to figure out something that will plug that hole on the sight glass until my new one comes in. All right, moment of truth. We start putting water into this and see if we got everything airtight, watertight, and ready to fill. First thing, we're going to open this valve on the skimmer. And already we've got water flowing here into the pump inlet. Skimmer assembly for the pump inlet. And I see bubbles rising up here into my filter. I can hear water running over, so I know that water is running in to this sand filter itself, and probably, yeah, I can feel air coming out right there. That's a good sign. We're just going to wait for that to fill before we turn the pump on. Start to blow water everywhere. I guess we could say the filter has filled with water at this point. So as I said, the end of my glass is cracked. This is what I came up with, just to try and fight the pressure. Now we're going to go turn the pump on and do an actual backwash for 2 minutes. Alright, so I get the pump taking water. Simmered is filled. And it is pumping water here through. We've got a few leaks here and there. We're going to have to tighten up, obviously. Discharge hose is blowing water out, and I've got a timer running. Because obviously we're pumping water out of the pool here, but this is getting rid of all of the loose sand that would have come back into the pool that we don't want. So this is actually good that we're doing this. Like I said, it only goes for 2 minutes. It's not a crazy amount of time. I'm going to tighten up that connection and we'll see how this goes.